In the mid to late 1800s, white people settling in the West temporarily suspended their sanity and good judgment for the promise of land and riches. Native Americans were, unfortunately, the hapless obstacle that stood in the way of settlers' goals. In this presentation, I'll talk to you about the effect those settlers had on Native American lives. This presentation is on the Plains Indians, and information can be found in Chapter 11, Section 2 of your Orange Book. We're talking about Goal 4. We're going to cover Objectives 1 and 2. Objective 1 is compare and contrast the different groups of people who migrated to the West and describe the problems they experienced. Objective 2 is evaluate the impact that settlement in the West had upon different groups of people and the environment. Of course, the people who were most affected by the settlers moving west were the Plains Indians. As the settlers were moving west, they had to cross across a large area called the Great Plains or Great American Desert. There, the Plains Indians had a very highly developed lifestyle. They were nomadic, or they had small villages set up that were semi-permanent. They were dependent on the horse for both transportation and hunting, and on the buffalo for food, clothing, weapons, artistic materials, etc. The buffalo and the horse were extremely important for the survival of the Plains Indians. Lifestyle for the Plains Indians was communal. It meant they worked together, everybody had very specific jobs, and the whole village worked as one unit. They had small extended families and common use of the land. This map shows the Great Plains, and you can see it extends all the way from Texas across the U.S. border to Canada. And if you notice, you'll see that anybody moving from the east to the west pretty much has to go across the Great Plains area. Of course, Americans have numerous types of interests, both in the Great Plains area and beyond it. The Americans really wanted to move Native Americans out of the east so that they could develop that land. And of course, that was done through the Indian Removal Act of 1830. This was done by President Jackson. And the Treaty of New Echota gave western lands to Native American tribes. So they were moved from the east to the west and promised this land in the west. However, the California Gold Rush of 1848 lured settlers to go through the plains in order to get to California. Also, the Homestead Act of 1862 offered 160 acres to a head of the household in exchange for a 5-year commitment to farm the land. Also, we have the development of railroads. Railroads are being built, the goal being to have a transcontinental railroad that helps settle the West and is used for shipping supplies and products back and forth, east to west. The Central and Union Pacific railroads are built by mostly Irish and Chinese immigrants, and the railroads meet at Promontory Point in Utah in 1869. This area is called the Golden Spike. One effect of the railroads was that white passengers often would shoot buffalo from the trains just for fun. This picture is of buffalo pelts, thousands of buffalo that had been massacred, and their hide was shipped via railroad to the East Coast. The slaughter of hundreds of thousands of buffalo, of course, was devastating for the Native Americans. This was but one blow to the Native American lifestyle. In the next presentation, we'll talk about other blows, other devastating things that happened to the Native Americans as settlers moved west.